Herzlich willkommen. Ich versuche es in meiner Heimatstadt in Deutsch und werde dann an einen Global-Kollegen übergeben, der dann in Englisch weiterführt. Ja, also auch für die Übersetzer sozusagen. Ja, auf uns kommt eine riesige Welle zu, wenn wir Richtung SAP, HANA, S4 denken. Der ein oder andere Kunde schläft schlecht. Wir als Beratungshaus schlafen auch sehr, sehr schlecht. Das ist einfach eine sehr beeindruckende Welle, die da auf uns zukommt, mit sehr vielen manuellen Aufgaben. Eigentlich prädestiniert genau für das, für was wir heute hier sind. Für UiPath, für Robotics, für IPA-Lösungen und für ein bisschen Hirnschmalz da reinzustecken. Das ist eine einmalige Chance für den Kunden. Ja, der Kunde, auch wir, wenn wir an die letzte Migration bei SAP zurückdenken, haben wir Kopfschmerzen, Langeweile, übliche Prozesse, Themen. Also an sich die perfekte Plattform, etwas zu verändern. Und ich weiß nicht, wie es Ihnen geht, wenn Sie da so zurückdenken, was da so war, was da so auf Sie zugekommen ist, dann waren die, wenn man jetzt auf so einen Buzzer klopft, eher alles langweilig, nicht gut, nicht spannend. So eine S4-Migration bietet aber Chancen, nicht nur für manuelle, standardisierte Prozesse, sondern auch für die ganzen neuen spannenden Themen. Darum ist es umso wichtiger, dass wir unsere Kunden zum einen in dieser Explorationsphase sehr gut begleiten und zum anderen ihm Werkzeuge an die Hand zu geben, dass er die Migration sinnvoll, effizient und schnell durchführen kann. Und dafür haben sich genau die rumänischen Kollegen, Geburtsland von UiPath, viele Gedanken gemacht, wie man sowas, ich habe es jetzt gelernt, einfach und entspannt lösen kann. Und insofern würde ich gerne an die Kollegen übergeben, die Ihnen jetzt mal grob, ja, für dieses komplexe Thema, 15 Minuten ist jetzt nicht so viel, mal grob darstellen, wie das Ganze aussehen könnte.
Okay. Schönen Dank, Andreas.
Gerne.
And, going forward, why do companies still hate migrating to SAP? Why is it something nobody is looking forward to? Well, the answer to that is fairly simple. And why? Because in the last probably 20 years, nothing has changed. The way SAP was implemented 20 years ago, it's still valid today. If we have people that were subject matter experts or involved in driving or working for SAP deployments 20 years ago, their jobs are still valid today, their expertise is still valid today. And in order to go into more detail on that, we've put together, and you can see here, the way in which SAP was implemented in the year 2000 and how, according to the classical Aspire methodology, is being implemented today. And if we were also to look from the how, when, and who perspective at that, we would see that the change, or respectively the impact, it's quite low. The focus of all the partners and companies implementing SAP right now has been to change the how. And the how has been changed by adding little accelerators here and there, by adding new complementing technologies, not too much, and mostly trying to reduce the cost. And that's been achieved by shifting a large part of the functional expertise from in-house or onshore to nearshore or offshore. And that focus on how has actually changed the impact less significantly. So the main focus that I would like you to take from this side is the sequentiality. Everything in implementing SAP today and 20 years ago was focused on a very particular sequence of activities. Nothing actually flowed in parallel. And because EY as a whole has a lot of experience also implementing SAP, the classical way, but we are, I think, the first Big Four company that has started using RPA, and more than that, probably the first Big Four that has been working with UiPath, since they were a purely Romanian company and started on the Romanian market, we have thought about putting everything together and try to actually innovate in the way in which companies move to S/4HANA. So looking at the standard approach, let's see what our approach is and what do we try to change out of that. So first of all, the how is the same. We're going to focus on migrating each company to SAP with each individuality and particularity coming out of that. However, our focus was not on the how, was on the who. Why? Because there is a lot of manual labor. You have to have people to test, people to design, people to go in detail, to understand processes, spend countless of hours and days in workshops just to come up with answers which, given the technology today, are possible to be achieved through robots. Not to a full extent, but even if we discuss and we consider a 20, 30% reduction in effort, if you think about projects that span over 2 years and cost roughly more than $20 million, then a 20 to 30% decrease is something significant. And that's probably the minimum that can be achieved at any client. We are targeting reducing both cost and effort to roughly half. Okay? When? That is also something we focused on, because from the previous slide, you remember the topic of sequentiality. And we thought, why does it have to be like that? And just to share a very simple example. If you were to move from the old SAP environment, contracts, and then you would move suppliers and materials, you would have to make sure that you have moved all the contracts, you have moved all the suppliers, you have moved all the materials before you would go and test if everything has been moved correctly. But we thought, why does that have to be? Because I don't need to have all the suppliers and all the materials to test a single specific contract. So what did we do? We actually found and identified, using robots, what the links between these three are, and we can already start testing in parallel with the movement. We move this contract, we move the respective supplier or suppliers involved, and we move also the materials that are linked to this tree. And then we test. So we can do testing in parallel and therefore shorten the entire duration of the move itself. And thus, by focusing on the when and the who, we are impacting substantially the way in which we are doing it, the how. Good. Now, let's go a bit into methodology and have a different perspective on how things are different in the approach that we have been developing for the past year and a half. If you'd look at the standard SAP methodology, that's simple, classic, discover, explore, realize, deploy. So nothing fundamentally changed, as I said, for the past 20 years. We thought that we can group everything there is to move into 3 different buckets, and those are adopt, adapt, and innovate. And a lot of things are going to be adopt, either adopted from the previous SAP environment or adopted from the standard processes that SAP comes with. And what do I mean by that? The relationship or the link to a bank interface that is in finance. Well, just because I'm moving to SAP S/4HANA, the bank interface stays the same. It's not going to change. The things that I need, the bank statements, the payments, all the information I'm getting from the bank, I'm still going to get from the bank, and moreover, the bank is not going to change its systems just because we move to a new version of SAP. So in these terms, if the process we have had before in ECC 6 stays unchanged, then that exact process is going to move to S/4HANA just like that. So that's the adopt part. Then we have the adapt part, in which by using the tools that we have put together, we can see if our current SAP processes are performing well. And how we can do that? First of all, we have, to our benefit, SAP itself is a great system for keeping track of things and logging everything that users do. And using that, we can identify a lot of information regarding a process, who has been doing it, how much did it take, when did it start, what are the gaps, what are the blockages, what are the bottlenecks of that process, and we can also compare it to two different things. One of them is the standard SAP template. SAP has drawn together, by having exposure to dozens of thousands of clients, some standardized processes. They think they are not ideal for everybody, but they are good enough to be replicated across the board or across industries. And also, because we are EY and we have the same exposure to even more clients, we have a database of processes. What we think the ideal process in a particular area should be, depending on the maturity of the firm, depending on the size of the firm, depending on the industry, and so on and so forth. So we can compare what you are doing in accounts payable with what SAP says should be your target and what EY says it's going to be your target. If you are performing badly or below that target, then you can improve that process as you go along. And that's the adapt part, because you can adapt yourself to the standard SAP process or to the EY version of that process. And obviously, the third thing is innovation. It is there where we would need the subject matter experts. We will not need them for the simple and basic stuff. We will just use them where is the possibility to fully redraw the processes themselves, to make them better in ways in which neither SAP is thinking about nor EY has the overview on, which are specific to your organization. Going this route, first of all, you will save time. And you will save time in corroboration to the fact that you are going to save effort. This is the classic effort, and obviously, if it takes with 40% less, you are going to have less people involved. And not to say that because the standard way of approaching a migration does have a bit of automation, by using RPA along the entire chain and the entire process, have more automation, less people. You just keep people where it adds the most value add. In the end, all these two things contribute to the third one, which is the overall cost. This is the cost per phase for classically implementing SAP. This is what we think should be at a minimum. And that's the difference in costs. Now, going forward, how does this happen? What are we actually talking about when we say this new revolutionary approach to SAP? Well, first of all, it hasn't been developed from scratch. As we said, we have the experience working with SAP, migrating companies to SAP. We have the experience of using RPA on an SAP environment. And we also have, I think, a good understanding of how processes should work. So we split this approach into three main buckets. One of them is the design one, the move one, and the deployment one. And just to give you a sense of the components within, I would spend probably a few minutes on a few of those that I think are true differentiators. So first of all, let's take it from the end. What do you do and how do you do testing on SAP? Obviously, there are use cases. You select samples. You have people designing all these test cases, running them automatically. What we did help and using RPA was we have a huge database of all SAP transactions there are there. So what we can do, again, using RPA as a vehicle for that, we can test automatically not only use cases, but every possible combination of transactions that there is at our disposal, making it, again, quicker and much more secure, lowering the risk and raising our confidence on the success of the migration itself. So that is one. Then, another example I would like to point out is the intelligent training. And what do we mean by intelligent training? So first of all, to train people to use SAP, you would have to have workshops, you would have to have people sitting in rooms explaining on what's the new system all about, how does it work, how do I post an invoice. We can use the test data and the bots that are automatically performing transactions to run specific actions in SAP. And by running and recording those actions, you would instantly get sort of a YouTube movie to which you only need to add the voice, and then you have an automatically generated repository of trainings that people can follow without having the need to spend weeks at a time in classrooms just to learn on how to post an invoice. And this actually takes me with the thinking at the last part of the methodology I wanted to point out, because I could talk about this until midnight today. And the last part is the user mining and analytics part of it. And this is a tool developed by UI, which can look at how people use SAP, how your cohort of people and teams are benefiting to what the current version of SAP now has to offer. And by doing that, we would know right from the start on how to configure your S4 environment in order to have those people benefiting the most. And by that I mean, if you have people working in accounts payable for the last 20 years, and the only thing that they are doing is posting invoices, well, probably it's not really worth to change to Fiori, because that would take time, that would take a lot of effort, and not only that you are not going to get better performance, you are going to get worse performance out of it. So that's one of the things that we can see by looking at the proficiency of people. In conclusion, what UI is now doing together with UiPath, we feel is going to change the perception and the experience of companies having to go to S/4HANA. Because if you'd give the choice to each of the large companies, everybody would love to be December 2025. Nobody's rushing ahead with their migration. Again, as Andreas was pointing out in the beginning, it's painful, nobody wants it. Many of the stakeholders don't think it adds value, but they have to do it and shift the blame to SAP because they oblige more or less everybody to shift to HANA until 2025. By building in an approach which can, probably at an ideal setting, half the cost and half the effort to migrate to SAP without disrupting the organization, without taking people out of the organization, that is going to change the outlook and also the perception of our clients when engaging in such a transformation. So that was it from our side. We will still be here. We'll be behind the doors after this is finished, and we can go together into much more detail if you want to, and we hope you can share at least half of our enthusiasm with it as we do.
Thank you.